Well, the Enterprise under Captain Picard continued to the last outpost, which has a lot about it that I like. There's the premise of finding ancient alien ruins or whatnot, remnants of a past civilization that no longer existed, and this sort of thing. And you find cool stuff, and this opens up opportunity for all kinds of things. They revisit this quite a bit through Next Generation and do it very well. It makes for some great plot points and whatnot for adventures and what have you. But this one, well, it's the first season, so of course it's not very good. The important part of it, I guess, is that you finally get the first on-screen look at the Ferengi. They were mentioned earlier. And the setup here, and I'm sure this was the initial intent, was that the Ferengi would now be, a villainous race for the Federation to deal with, like the Klingons and Romulans were in the original series. Of course, the Romulans would continue to be villains in Next Generation, but the Klingons, it was already established with Worf, and then, of course, the movies would play out in this as time progressed, that there was peace between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. And so that was an aspect of the past. And so eventually they make up new adversaries down the road. But of course, at the time, the initial input for Next Generation from Gene Roddenberry was he didn't want any conflict, he didn't want any space wars and stuff. But the more you limit conflict, you don't. There's conflict in these episodes, no matter how you put it. But it stymied the abilities. They'd be like, well, what do we do? I mean, this thing was born out of a Western in space, so how are you going to, probably getting a little full of himself on that aspect of it, even though his idea of a bright and optimistic future to look forward to is something that was in short supply for a lot of science fiction. It was all very dark and dismal and doom and gloom and stuff, so couldn't there be something that had something positive? And Star Trek was one that stepped up to the plate quite a few times, and Next Generation was no different. So it's understandable his position, but to make it law, where it blocks them in, it hurt the show in a lot of ways. Here, it's there, but it's not the real fault of it. The fault of it is the story just falls flat. So they're pursuing a Ferengi vessel, which is stolen Federation property. Of course, they don't see it that way. Hey, finders keepers, and so, but they're chasing them. Then all of a sudden, they think the Ferengi have some sort of weapon that depowers the Enterprise. But the truth is, they've both been snared in a trap from an ancient civilization, from this planet that they've come into be in orbit of. And but the Ferengi, so you finally get presented with what they're about. They know very little about them, and this is their first contact with them, and the first time that anybody from the Federation sees them. When they're on their leader, or if they call him a captain, I forget what the title was, appears on screen, and he makes himself look much bigger than he is. When you finally see them on the planet's surface, they're little space goblins, But what's their core philosophy? The Klingon Empire, it was power and the Empire and all that stuff, and they were an analogy for the Soviet Union and all that. And but for in our enlightened age, by the late 80s in Hollywood, what could make the Ferengi evil? Well, they were hardcore capitalists. So that was the lesson there. Capitalism is bad, even though Star Trek was a pure capitalist venture. That's the whole purpose of it, but and that's Hollywood for you. But anyway, so that was the deal. But it was all a misunderstanding, as each one eventually they both figure out that there's a third party in this that's trapped both ships, and it's this planet that's the last outpost, as the title suggests, from this ancient empire called the Deccan Empire. And it had left this, automated trap there on the planet, and it would drain the energy from their ships, so they were losing power. And so they agree to beam down to figure out what's going on, and they end up attacking the Ferengi attack the Federation away team. Meanwhile, with the power draining out on the Enterprise, they're losing life support systems, and they're slowly dying on there unless Riker and the guys can figure out what's going on. But eventually, they meet the Wizard of Oz. It's just, or Slarty Bartfast, if you know Hitchhiker's Guy on Magrathea, is basically the same thing. This AI entity is there to test anybody seeking entry into the Takan Empire, and they're trying to tell them that it's been dead for hundreds of thousands of years. It becomes very stupid. Of course, the Ferengi screw up, and they but Riker decides to spare them, and they return to their ships, and the digital entity says, "I would like to meet you again, Riker." Yeah, good luck with that. And they go back. Yeah, that's where it just falls apart. This is really stupid. There's not a whole lot. The interest in mystery into an ancient society or whatever would be cool, and they do get there in later episodes and do a much better job of utilizing that idea. But here, there's really not a whole lot there. It's just the Ferengi. They were not going to be formidable enemies. They were just going to be comic relief. So they really aren't, anything sinister. Later on, when they get to, the Cardassians kind of make up, but the Romulans end up being their best villains. And then in Deep Space Nine, you get, the Dominion and all that. But and the Borg, of course, they probably went way too much reliant on the Borg being their big enemies. But the Ferengi, right off the bat, they decided they're just going to be these jokes, they make remarks about Troy, not Troy, Natasha Yar, because they're disgusted at women being clothed. And that, but none of it works. It's just they try to make jokes here and there, and it's just stupid. And then they try to do things with data to be funny, and those all fall flat. It's all about establishing his difficulty in understanding human language and whatnot. And he gets his fingers in a Chinese finger trap for some reason. It's just too bad, because there was opportunity here and they missed it. Some of the other things about they do make in these early episodes reuse of the sets of alien worlds that are very similar to the original show, which I appreciate. I know it looks cheap and everything, but I don't mind it at all, But the attempt at it and the plot points and story, it looks akin to a slap job there, and that's unfortunate. And Last Outpost is just not very good. That said, the following episode of Where No One Has Gone Before. Yeah, we gotta use that title. The old show did it with, the Where No Man Has Gone Before. Oh, that's naughty. But so they had no one where no one goes, but so it would be a replay of that? No. They do go very far, a lot further than Kirk ever did. But there's interesting concepts to it about all this, but boy, it's just not very good either. I guess it's a little better than the other one because the other one falls flat and what have you. But boy, the Traveler is introduced in this episode, and that has got to be one of the creepiest characters, and especially his obsession with Wesley. Yeah, not too crazy about that. Didn't like Wesley, but good God, this. And then eventually he does go off with this guy, Anyway, this is how they first met. So they're testing a new warp engines to see if they can increase their speed and all this stuff. And this guy is claiming all the credit for it, but he's got this strange partner who helps him out, his assistant. Well, the assistant is more than he seems. And so they test right off the bat. They test it out, and the guy that's the officer, Kaczynski, I think his name was, is arrogant and an asshole and all this stuff, and has no respect for anyone else, and is taking all credit for this when it's really the alien doing it all, because the alien has magical powers. And so the ship, they test it, and then suddenly it zooms to the other side of the universe or whatever. Which means it just had more pink and purple stars or something in it. But whatever. How else are you going to tell them they're in a different point of space? So then Picard's like, well, can we get back? And so Kaczynski's, yeah, I can, yeah. Meanwhile, the only one who noticed that the alien was doing some magic was Wesley. But no one listens to Wesley. I mean, why would you? You shouldn't listen to him now. But but the alien, it weakens him when he uses his powers to do this. But gee, guys, I screwed up when I boosted your warp engines. So he tries to get them back, but they end up going even further, I don't know, outside of time and space or something, and they're in a dimension where their every thought becomes reality, and so people start seeing things, and some of it they handle okay, and others it's really stupid. They have a scene where Picard is in the turbo lift, and the door opens, and he's about to walk into outer space. That was pretty good. And then some guy you never see again or know or anything is fantasizing about being in an orchestra, and then it's not real. It just to demonstrate what's going on, but completely unnecessary. Another woman is dancing around as a ballet dancer, and stuff like that to get the point across. Your every thought can become real. And you would have thought some other thoughts, would have gotten out of hand. Meanwhile, you see a scene of Natasha Yar remembering the horrible rape planet that she was from. Jeez Louise. And we get to see Worf's kitty cat and Natasha Yar's kitty, which is an actual kitty, but Worf's kitty was a decorated pig. But, whatever. So later on, Picard meets his mother. Oh, yeah, remember her from Secret Hideouts, Picard Season 2? Yeah, they forgot about this episode. So he meets his dead mother, who's an old lady. No mention of her having committed suicide. But, anyway, so they realize, oh boy, you gotta concentrate your thoughts and not think about anything, All of a sudden, certain women are naked because the guy's got the hots for them, and vice versa and stuff like that. No, stop doing that, guys. And give all your hopeful thoughts to the traveler as he tries to get us back home, which he does, but he disappears. Oh, and Wesley's all upset. Yeah, he was a friend. He gave me candy and stuff. Oh, jeez. So anyway, before the traveler disappears, he tells Picard how important Wesley is, and he's the key to it all. But don't tell him. So Picard decides, okay, I'm going to be nicer to Wesley and let him on the bridge and make him an acting ensign. So how about that? Isn't that nice? Yeah. So there you go. See, now in today's Star Trek, and I'm surprised they haven't done this already. Well, I guess they kind of sort of did, but not quite. Wesley would have to be a girl. And he still could trans, he could do that. And in Star Trek, if you're trans, just hop into the transporter, and your molecules get rearranged, and boy, there you go. So, gee, Star Trek, what are you waiting for? So, but that would be the only difference. And boy, everyone just loves that story, don't they? Yeah. He couldn't just have him learn, and eventually he becomes a member of the crew as just, another lieutenant or whatever down the road. No, he had to be special and godlike or something. Yeah. Well, can't win them all, huh? So, and then more insinuations that there's something going on between Picard and Crusher. Oh, baby. Maybe they'll try to resolve that, and it's too late. But anyway, there you go. Keeping to my belief that the initial seasons of Next Generation were not very good, and seeing them again has not really changed that. But there's a few things here. They could have done this, they could have done that, and the actors are growing into their roles. There are scenes where I'd forgotten all about this, about how long they took them to realize that Geordi should be the engineer, since they didn't really have one. They kept changing them and stuff. And he actually said, Jordy, go see what's going on. And he heads down and says, hey there, acknowledging that he kind of knows his way around there. So, eventually he gets there. So there's stuff like that. But other than that, yeah. But fortunately for them, it was a different time, so they had time to grow and get to better things.